developed due to licensing issues, which will come over with Qt, is Qt is not based fully in the GPL, or the GNU public licensor. They have sort of versions, but they also have their...
Feel free to elaborate on that.
Huh?
Feel free to elaborate on that.
The GNU public licensure, there's several versions of them, and they're ways of protecting Microsoft or Apple from stealing your code you release for free and not paying you, or contributing their changes to it back to the original source, which has happened a lot because they both regularly get in trouble for stealing open source ideas from Linux, word for word, and not, or changing those word for word copies and then not recontributing them to the upstream sources. Upstream being the projects that are currently working on, that are all in testing, that then get later applied to later distributions and whatnot. So Ubuntu is considered like a fairly downstream project. They're also in trouble with GNU a lot as of late for not contributing their changes to upstream. So that's why a lot of the Linux community is very cranky with Ubuntu right now. Because, like, who in here uses Ubuntu? Okay, you know how they got that little system where it'll analyze, that little thing in the boot process now that will analyze your system and then try to figure out how to boot using all of your cores at once so that you'll get a really quick boot time? They're not contributing that to upstream. And it's utilizing a lot of the GNU stuff, so they're in trouble with that one. Otherwise, normally, when you boot Linux like you just saw my computer do, it'll only use one core through the entire boot process. And they altered the way initialization, which is fully licensed under GNU. So if you alter that, you have to commit changes. They're not committing those changes to the upstream. So they're sort of in trouble with that. Now they're making their own forks and sort of going, Linux goes this way, we're going to go this way, but we're going to keep grabbing the stuff we like from it. So anyways, preaching aside, Nokia now owns Qt. They bought them a couple of years ago. They use it for their failing Symbian platform, their failed Migo platform, their failed Mayemo platform, and this sounds really bashing on them, but I'm very disappointed because I was a huge supporter of those projects, and then it sounds like on Friday they're going to announce Nokia and Microsoft partnerization, which fucking pisses me off. But lots and lots of other people do use Qt for lots of things. We'll get into that. But the thing that's nice about Qt is it's a abstraction over everything. So it's cross-platform. It works in Linux, it works in Mac, it works in Windows. For example, Rico and I have been playing StarCraft, and one of the ways we're using a free communication rather than in the in-game chat is using a program called Mumble. Now, granted, it's not working on Mark's computer for some reason, but it runs in Qt. So you could actually install Mumble on any of the 3 OSs, and you'll be able to communicate, providing you can get your microphone to work in Linux. Depends on which version you're using that it'll get it for.
Real ID's not good enough for you?
Huh?
Real ID's not good enough for you?
No, the in-game StarCraft chat sucks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Mumble is light years better.
It's basically like using a really, 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 really light form of Skype. And actually, I think Skype uses Qt now.
Yeah?
I think so. At least one of the variants, I think, does. No, they use GTK, I'm sorry. But it can be used as just a GUI overlay or a full platform. And the full platform, it works on all these different systems. And it sort of, you use its versions of I/O, strings, classes, stuff like that, that then interface the system. So you should be able to, and should is always the key word, take something that runs in Linux like a media player, and then install Qt in its framework on a Windows machine, and then run that same program. It'll look similar and should run the same, because what it will do is it uses Qt's own what's called abstraction layer. You have Qt, and then it interfaces to whatever the native like sound and multimedia support is. So it automatically works with that. So you don't have to do any unique coding to each of the different Or what I've mostly been using it for is just a GUI front end to a lot of my typically terminal-based command line things, and I have some examples on here. One from actually Dr. Chelberg's, who just walked in. Dr. Chelberg's image understanding course, which, if it wasn't for the way I used Qt, it would have had to do something where you sort of recompile the code to produce an image that's. I'll explain it when I get to it. But so in general, what the SDK provides is these full class libraries, all the development tools, and possibly the best documentation on the planet. Again, the cross-platform things, and then lower level libraries that it uses to interface with that OS that you're running on. And that's where they take care of things for you. Is they're the ones that it needs to compile and install Qt on the host system, so they already know how to interface with the native environments like the file system, the multimedia system, the networking system, SQL systems, and whatnot. So again, who uses Qt? Nokia obviously does and/or did. KDE, which is one of the variants of a Linux desktop environment, is the one I run. I like it the best, mostly because I don't like where GNOME is heading. Volvo uses it for all their in-car displays. I believe the term is now infotainment systems. It's the computers they put in the dash of the cars. The Roku, Netflix, Netflix boxes that you just hook up to your TV, and a lot of the newer TVs that have Netflix built into them are using Qt as their base system. Autodesk Maya, and most of the Autodesk, that's one of the projects I've heard they're doing, is they're converting all of Autodesk to Qt, so it runs on all 3 operating systems. That way they no longer have to worry about, oh, it only works on Mac or it only works on Windows. That way they don't have to. That way they can sell more licenses of everything to everybody. Google Earth, Skype. Okay, yeah, Skype did use it. TeamSpeak, VirtualBox. This is a little outdated. There have been a handful of more companies that I've seen get added to the list that are major players, but most of the European car manufacturers do use it as their infotainment systems. It's just a highly stylized version. Again, ways to use Qt was the way that I explained, is the full framework interfacing or as a GUI front end. And now keep in mind, it's a GUI front end where you send the commands to Qt and then it sends it to your programs. You have to alter your programs to fire off Qt stuff. And this is from another Dr. Chelberg course, image visualization, where this is using it as a GUI backend. This is from just updating a table and whatnot of a list structure that's there. I had to manage that list on the front end so that the user could see like what sort of tags for images people were using, and then I had to bring it out of there so that I could interface it with what I had developed on the back end, which was a program called Visual Toolkit, and then I also had a SQL3 database I was using also. So while it has SQL, various forms, MySQL, MS SQL, Postgres, SQLite, I think, works. If you want to not use their system, if you have already something developed you know how to use and know exactly what you need to do within your own code, just don't use their version, use yours. So that's one of the nice things about it. And again, these are, you have like list classes in C++. Unfortunately, the 240A students have not gotten to these. You don't get to standard the SDL until 240C. But they re-implement a lot of their things so that it works within their environment. So strings are re-implemented as a Q string. They've re-implemented C++, but it still can compile regular and the compiler can use regular C++. So the best way to show this off is with examples. I'm actually jealous of the screen. The screen seems a lot nicer than mine at home. of the big things they have is this is the main Qt creator, this is the IDE development system they've come up with. I personally like it, I know many people hate IDEs. But one of the nice things to do when you install the SDK is it comes with 800 million examples, and then so if we just want to say let's see some of the works. Yes, Mark.
Is this IDE environment, is this processor specific too, as much as OS specific, or
What do you mean?
do you have to target, like when you want to create one of these for, say, on an OS, you have to target a specific processor, like an x86 ARM?
If you do cross development, typically what will happen is, well, actually, I'm not sure, but Qt will sit on top of your target environment.
Okay.
So if you, I'm sure there is a way to target ARM as the main execution, but I have never actually done that, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But generally, you should be able to include it. I can, give me a second and I'll show you. So yes, part of what it does, especially with the examples, is it actually has its example documentation as to exactly what goes on in the code built into the SDK, which is really, really nice. And it even shows you where things are at. It'll do the auto hiding of documentation and whatnot that you don't necessarily need to see. Other nice features about this are you hold down the control, you hit it, you'll follow it to where it exists. Forward back, like in browsers, works. So if you, like, I didn't want to be there and you can do that, you can just use it like a browser. I use that a lot. It has the split view, so you can work on both of these at the same time. You can also work with things back and forth, but that you can do that with almost every IDE. So,
How easy is it to build your own documentation?
like auto generation.
The stuff on the right, if you wanted to do that for your own code, how hard would it be to build that?
Like a
You know,
document
I don't
change
think
out
I've ever tried to use their document generation, but that might be something to look into. I can look into it and post something to the ACM thing. I was also considering starting after this like an ACM like small users group to help anybody that did want to try to learn some of this stuff. I'm going to go over some of the points that gave me some issues and that were tricky when I first started learning it, and specifically it has to do with how you make buttons interact with things when not using a predefined thing. But, so, no, I do not know off the top of my head how they do it exactly, but I'm sure there's an extensive documentation process. So, to go into more, if you hit F1 while your cursor is just on a class type, it'll pull it up over here, and it has, in my opinion, a fairly impressive documentation style, and it's this detailed throughout the entire thing. It goes through pretty well defined. So this is something that once you get to the latter things, you're starting to use other people's toolkits. Documentation to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do is the greatest thing in the world, which makes me another proponent for actually documenting